Well, good morning. I'm Matt Briscoe. This is a special report remembering the 43rd governor of Texas, Mark White. Mark Wells White was the 43rd governor of Texas, born to Mark Wells White Sr. and Sarah Elizabeth White in Henderson, Texas. He attended junior high school in Lanier Junior High School and Lamar High School in Houston. He went on to attend Baylor University in Waco, where he was a member of the Phi Delta Theta, and he subsequently graduated from Baylor Law in 1965. Governor White had numerous accomplishments in his career in politics, and just so being, some of them were the 46th Attorney General of Texas, serving under Governor Bill Clements, and he was the 74th Secretary of State, serving under Governor Dolph Briscoe, and Mark Wells White Jr. went on to be the 43rd governor of the state of Texas. Governor White practiced law in Houston, and his early roles in government, he served as the state's Assistant Attorney General. In 1973, White was appointed as Texas Secretary of State, as I said earlier, under Dolph Briscoe, and he served in the 36th Infantry Division of the Texas National Guard. White served as Secretary of State until 1977, when he resigned to run for the state's office of Attorney General. He served there until 1983. In 1978 general election, White defeated Republican James A. Baker III, also a Houston lawyer, businessman, and a very powerful man affiliated with the Bush family there in Houston. White polled around 1,249,000 votes, which got him 55.13% to Baker's 44%. As the state's chief enforcement officer, he co-chaired federal state enforcement coordinating committees and was a member of the governor's Organized Crime Prevention Council. On the national level, he was elected chairman of the Southern Conference of Attorney Generals in May of 1981. It was in 1982 he ran for governor. He declined to seek a second term, though, as state attorney general, but chose to seek the most powerful office in the state, the office of the governor of Texas. In 1982, he ran against Bob Armstrong, who was a Democrat, and was a very outgoing, very boisterous land commissioner, and he vacated that seat after 12 years. And Governor Bill Clements, the first Republican governor since Reconstruction of the state, was very heavily involved in the political scene there. But on to it. In November of 1982, Mark White defeated the very popular Bill Clements over concerns about the governor's poor economic numbers and lack of support from minority groups. White in the general election received 53.2% of the vote to Bill Clements' 45.9%. In a year, if you'll remember, that year, Texas Democrats swept all the statewide offices that were up for grabs that year, led by a very powerful U.S. Senator Lloyd Bentsen, who had won a third six-year term to the Senate. And then, of course, he had serving there also, he had the legendary William Hobby Jr. as the lieutenant governor of Texas. Now, under his tenure as the state's 43rd governor, from January 18th, 1983 to January 20th, 1987, Governor White worked to, as he called it, preserve and enhance resources so that Texas would not fall back, but go forward as a state in the future. That was Governor Mark White, not to be confused with Mayor Bill White, former mayor of Houston. But that was pretty much his philosophy, as you could see it for sure. His main concerns were the economy of Texas and education reform in Texas. He did that by focusing on Texas's resources and was able to work on many of the problems facing the state in the early 1980s. The Texas economy during the mid-1980s was a very volatile economy and the price of oil had declined, pushed Texas into a recession, and Governor White laid out the groundwork, as he said, for a more diversified economy, one less reliant upon the swings of a single industry, more namely the oil and gas industry, which Texas is still to this day very, very dependent on, as we saw during this legislative session. Now, White served as governor during the Texas sesquicentennial in 1986. He oversaw a number of celebrations concerning that anniversary. He had some pretty prominent appointments. Elma Salinas Ender, the first Hispanic woman to serve as judge in the District Court of Texas. From 1983 until her retirement in 2012, Ender was judge of the 341st Judicial Court out of Laredo. Now, when Governor White took office, Texas was ranked one of the lowest performing states in Scholastic Aptitude Test, the SAT, also one of the worst in teacher salary. After taking office, White immediately appointed a committee on public education, called a special session in the legislature in '84, and worked with lawmakers to pass the Education Opportunity Act, known as the EOA here in Texas. So by focusing on education, White was able to make Texas a force to reckon with, I guess, as he called it, a state of the future with regards to its most important resource, he said, the children. I know to a lot of people here in the state of Texas, our most important resource is oil and natural gas. To Governor White, the most important resource, as he said, were our children. And though his diligent work as governor was great, it caused him a lot of problems. Governor White's main problem was that he could not communicate these great ideas that he had as governor. That tended to be his fall and probably why he was a single-term governor. Governor White was a very conservative Democrat, unlike what we see today, either fall conservative or liberal. He was probably one of the very last, if not the last, who could bridge the gap between conservatism and liberalism, and Democrats and Republicans. So he had a lot of success there. Again, his problem was that Governor White just was not an effective communicator when it came to explaining his points of view to the Texas people, who eventually, as he said, he told, I remember one time he had said something along the lines of, if you go back to your districts and people want to blame somebody for what we've done here, tell them to blame me. And in the election, that's exactly what the Texas people did. They blamed Governor Mark White. And I don't think he ever intended to get a second term, just knowing the history like we know it. In 1986, White lost to Republican Governor Bill Clements, 52-46, so the roles were almost kind of reversed, if you will. Some believe that the widely unpopular no pass, no play policy that Governor White got through the legislature under his tenure is what caused him to not get elected. In Texas, back before this law, we took students who were underperforming, who were not the greatest students. They weren't the greatest in academics. But as long as you could still play football, you could still be on the football team. It didn't matter what grade you had. Well, because of Governor White, we now have no pass, no play. If you don't maintain a certain average in school, you don't play athletics. And I think that's a good thing. But it was widely unpopular. I think it was very highly noted that one of his security details at one time when Governor White was going out to West Texas told him, said, "Governor, here's my gun, here's my badge, enjoy. I don't think you're going to make it back." And it was very unpopular what he did with no pass, no play. But during after he left office, following his departure, White worked for the law firm of Keck, Mahan, and Cate, and he attempted to run for governor again in 1990, but as we know, was defeated by the very popular Ann Richards. Jim, and I think there was a runoff election, if I remember right, between Jim Maddox and somebody else, but it was a pretty controversial election year there. But anyway, he went on to practice law, was chairman of the board of the Houston Independent School District Foundation. He endorsed city council candidate Yolanda Jones in 2003 there in Houston. And it also helped Jones to lead her spot, or to go on to win that spot in the city council. He also endorsed U.S. Senator Barack Obama in the Texas primaries back in 2008. And in 2011, White publicly opposed Texas A&M's departure from the Big 12 conference to join the Southeastern Conference. So he was a very outspoken individual. He was a big man, big in stature, big in heart, big in Texas, and is probably the last Texas governor to truly care about the state of Texas and the people in it, not their special interest groups. So to sum this up, White died at his home in Houston after waking up feeling some discomfort in his chest this past Saturday. He passed away at the age of 77. The cause of death has been ruled a heart attack. He leaves behind his wife, Linda Gale, and his 3 children at the time of his death. And he had been suffering kidney cancer for many years, but they think that his death is unrelated. Governor White is to be buried today at the Texas State Cemetery in Austin after lying in state under the state Capitol dome where he so valiantly served his time as governor. He'll lie in state for about 3 hours from 12 to 3. So to sum it up, this is our first memorial of the day to the 43rd governor of Texas, Mark White. Mark Wells White, being remembered today, dead at the age of 77. I'm Matt Briscoe, managing editor of the Hill Country Tribune CNN affiliate. We'll talk soon throughout the day as we continue to remember Governor Mark White.